If you've ever if you've ever played a video game that was just absolutely kicking your teeth in, you've probably been tempted to just put in a cheat code,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Like you toggle on God mode and suddenly you have infinite health, infinite ammo. You can just walk right through walls
Best feeling in the world.
for like the first 5 minutes. It is the most exhilarating feeling. You're just completely untouchable. But then usually around, I don't know, minute 10, something weird happens.
Yeah, the friction is gone.
Exactly. You realize that without the friction, without the actual, chance of losing, the game is completely hollow. You put the controller down because winning just doesn't actually mean anything anymore.
I mean, it's a perfect metaphor because that feeling where total invincibility suddenly turns into this total emptiness that isn't just a video game glitch.
Right.
It's exactly what happens in the real world when someone achieves, well, absolute unchallenged power.
Which is wild. And today we are bringing you on a deep dive into basically the human equivalent of God mode. We're unpacking this very specific, strange, and honestly kind of tragic psychological phenomenon.
The lonely ruler.
The lonely ruler, yes. And to be clear to you listening, we aren't just talking about the loneliness of, being misunderstood.
Right, like the tortured artist trope.
Yeah, exactly. We are talking about the sharp, dreadful isolation that comes from winning too completely. So let's unpack this. Because to understand how a leader ends up completely alone, we first have to look at how they clear the room.
They engineer it.
Right. They don't just wake up one day and find themselves isolated. They build it choice by choice.
It really is an active construction process, even if the architect doesn't fully realize what they're building at the time. Imagine a leader sitting at the absolute top of a hierarchy.
Okay.
There is no one above him, and critically, there are no constraints on their behavior that they didn't author themselves. They just have the final say.
Which, I mean, that sounds like the dream. Just total autonomy.
It sounds like the dream, right? But human psychology is incredibly messy. What happens over years or maybe decades is this leader begins a systematic process of removal
Removal of what?
of people. They slowly get rid of every single person who pushes back, every advisor, every friend, every board member who says, wait a minute, or are you sure about this?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, or someone who just says, I think there's another way we need to look at this. One by one, those voices are excised from the inner circle.
Wait, I have to push back on this a little bit myself, actually.
Go for it.
Because if I'm running a massive company or, I'm managing a huge project, I kind of need alignment. I don't have time to debate every single minor decision.
Right.
So isn't getting rid of like friction just good management? Aren't you just removing people who are slowing the team down?
Well, that is exactly how the leader rationalizes it.
Oh, really?
Oh, totally.
Yep.
It looks like good management on paper. Yeah. But there is a massive difference between structural alignment and demanding constant emotional comfort.
Okay, that makes sense.
What's fascinating about this phenomenon is that these dissenting voices, they aren't removed for being wrong or incompetent. In fact, and this is the part that slowly curdles the culture of an organization, they are often removed precisely because they are right.
Wait, they get fired for being right?
Yes. The ruler doesn't fire them for being bad at their job. They fire them for being inconvenient.
Inconvenient. So they are looking at someone who says, wait, and instead of hearing, let's avoid a mistake, they hear something else entirely.
Exactly. The core mechanism at play here is a tragic miscategorization in leaders' mind. They begin to mistake discomfort for danger.
Discomfort for danger.
Yeah, they mistake a challenge to their idea for an attack on their person. And most dangerously, they mistake someone's ability to see them clearly, like flaws, blind spots, and all as a direct threat to their power.
Okay, so it's basically a prioritization problem. The ruler is choosing their own emotional comfort over someone else's realness. They are choosing feeling right over actually being right.
Precisely. Think about it this way. When you sit at the top and you have abandoned your own internal constraints, your own willingness to be self-critical, being around someone who has maintained their integrity is profoundly uncomfortable.
Because they're a reminder of what you're lacking?
Yes, integrity is a mirror. If yours is compromised, you do not want someone standing next to you reflecting that back all day. So the ruler protects their fragile ego by simply removing the mirror.
And I think it's so important for you listening to realize that this isn't just some ancient history lesson. We aren't just talking about like medieval kings executing messengers here.
Oh, no, not at all.
You see this exact dynamic play out in the modern world every single day. I mean, think about a massive tech startup where a founder gets a little too powerful and suddenly fires the only lead engineer who has the guts to say, hey, this new product feature actually won't scale.
Yeah, or honestly, you see it at family dinner tables.
Oh, totally. The family dynamic is such a great example.
Right.
You have a parent or a patriarch who needs everyone to agree with their political worldview or their version of family history a little too badly. And if you challenge it, suddenly you just aren't invited to Thanksgiving anymore.
Because the filter has activated. Whenever power is untethered from real accountability, the leader starts viewing any slight friction as an existential threat to the system.
Okay, so the leader has decided that friction is a threat and that the filter is up and running. Who actually gets caught in that filter first? Because someone has to be the first to go.
The research on this is beautifully poignant, actually. The good ones always go first.
Which feels super counterintuitive, right? It's so easy to look at a toxic corporate culture or a highly dysfunctional family and see the people who leave as the ones who, couldn't hack it.
Right, like they were too weak.
Like they were too fragile for the high-pressure environment. But the psychology flips that completely. It's not that these high-integrity people are fragile. It's actually the exact opposite.
They are what psychologists might describe as structurally robust. They are alive. Their inner structure is solid, and they cannot sustain staying in a place that actively punishes that aliveness.
Let's break that down for the listener. What does it actually mean to have a robust inner structure in this context?
Well, it means they possess rich, developed inner lives that do not depend on the ruler's approval to exist. They have a core sense of self, a set of values, maybe hobbies, and outside relationships that survive perfectly fine without the kingdom.
So they don't need the boss to tell them they're worthy.
Exactly. The ruler's validation isn't the oxygen they breathe.
They know who they are outside the gates of the castle.
That's a great way to put it. So when the environment shifts, when the leader starts requiring them to shrink, to suppress their critical thinking, to mute their feelings just to keep the boss comfortable, they do a very simple, very rational calculus.
They realize it's just not worth it.
They look around and realize the cost of admission to this inner circle is way too high. It requires amputating a part of their own brain.
So they pack up their desks. And what's wild to me is how quietly it often happens.
Yes, very quietly.
They don't usually throw a massive fit. They just hand in a polite resignation letter that doesn't even state the real reason.
Right?
Because they know there's no point arguing with someone in God mode.
There really isn't.
They just leave to go somewhere their realness is welcome, somewhere a leader isn't actively threatened by their capacity to just think and feel.
And that departure is a profound structural loss for the system. The organization just lost its immune system.
Oh, its immune system.
Yeah. But for the ruler, in that exact moment, it just feels like a massive relief. A source of friction is gone. The headache is cured. They fail to realize that by filtering out everyone who has an independent inner life, they're creating a massive, dangerous vacuum.
Which brings us to a really fascinating complication. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
If all the people with independent inner boundaries have left the room, I mean, a CEO still has an executive team, right? A king still has a court. So who exactly fills those empty seats? What kind of ecosystem gets built in the wake of that exodus?
Well, who is left are the ones who stayed. And we have to ask why they stayed. They stayed because they are comfortable for the ruler. But more importantly, the ruler is completely necessary for them.
Okay, so it's an interdependent thing.
Highly. Unlike the people who left, the people who stayed desperately need the ruler's favor, validation, and resources to feel secure.
I was trying to visualize this while looking over the sources, and I keep coming back to this idea of a funhouse.
Funhouse.
Yeah, it's like the ruler has decided to build a massive, sprawling luxury mansion, but they've chosen to build it entirely out of funhouse mirrors.
Oh, I see.
Everywhere the ruler looks, down every hallway, in every single boardroom, they just see a perfectly distorted, completely agreeable reflection of themselves. It looks incredibly shiny and impressive from the inside, but it is completely unmoored from reality.
That is such a crucial way to look at it, because we were talking about an actual architecture of behavior. The people who remain in the inner circle are going to mirror. They will flatter, they will agree, and they will perform.
Right.
But it's vital to recognize that this performance is not born out of genuine love or deep respect.
It's survival.
It is entirely survival. Their position in that ecosystem is structurally attached to the ruler's pleasure. If the ruler is happy, They get to keep their status, their corner office, their paycheck, their place at the holiday table.
And if the ruler is unhappy,
They risk becoming the next person exiled. So they adapt, and they get very, very good at it.
how does that adaptation actually look in practice, like on a daily basis?
It looks like emotional contortion. They don't just nod along. They study the leader's moods. They learn exactly when to laugh. They learn how to express faux outrage on the leader's behalf when the leader feels slighted. Agreement mimics wisdom. Flattery mimics friendship. Mirroring mimics love.
Mirroring mimics love. Man, that is devastating, because if you are the ruler, you look around and you think, look at all these people who love me. Look at all these brilliant executives who agree with my genius.
Right.
You have absolutely no idea that you are just looking at the structural supports of your own ego. You think you're looking at a team, but you're really just looking at a mirror.
And that is the ultimate danger of the echo chamber. The ruler built it themselves, brick by brick, every single time they chose comfort over truth. And the result is what we might call a profound epistemological crisis.
Hold on, epistemological crisis, you mean they literally lose their grip on what is true and false?
Literally. Epistemology is the study of how we know what is true. When everyone's job, their literal survival mechanism, is to agree with you, you lose the fundamental ability to calibrate your own reality. You just float away.
So it's like you're navigating a ship, but the compass is magnetized to only point in whatever direction you're already looking. If you say north is south, everyone on the bridge says, "Aye, Captain, north is south." Brilliant observation.
Precisely. And remember, the people surrounding the ruler are highly motivated to maintain this illusion. If the illusion shatters, their jobs are on the line.
Right. They have to keep the game going.
So they perform warmth and loyalty so convincingly that the ruler almost entirely believes it. The system functions incredibly smoothly on the surface, but underneath, it is entirely hollow.
So they've built the fun house. They're sitting in the middle of it. They have achieved their ultimate goal. They are the smartest person in every single room. They are surrounded by total unwavering agreement. They have won the game on God mode.
Yes.
But what happens when the meeting is over? What happens when the noise of the day finally fades and the performative warmth stops working?
This is where the physical, somatic toll of this ego structure reveals itself. And this is perhaps the most fascinating part of the research we looked at. The ruler might not even consciously know they are lonely.
Really?
The performance around them is that good. But the nervous system knows. The body knows.
How does the body know? What does that actually feel like?
Well, we are biologically wired to detect authentic human connection.
Yeah.
We look for microexpressions, for genuine friction, for the unpredictable spark of another human being. When someone is faking warmth for survival, our primitive brain registers it as uncanny or slightly off.
Even if we like it.
Exactly, even if our conscious ego absolutely loves the flattery.
So it's like eating junk food. Your tongue loves the sugar, but your cells are starving for actual nutrients.
That's exactly it. And the research points to these very specific creeping moments where that starvation hits. It happens on a random Tuesday, or at 3 a.m. when the house is totally quiet.
The 3 a.m. hollow.
Yes. Or it's that strange, dreadful, heavy flatness that descends right after a massively successful arrangement. Everyone claps, everyone tells you how brilliant you are, they leave the boardroom, and then just an echoing nothingness.
That flatness, it's the realization of the hollow. It's that sudden, jarring awareness that you're surrounded by people who will never, ever surprise you. They will never push back because you have systematically trained pushback out of them, or you just fired anyone who had it to begin with.
And what does this realization mean for the ruler? It means that the loneliness they are experiencing isn't an accident. It isn't bad luck. It isn't the burden of genius, which is what they like to tell themselves.
Right.
It is the product. It is the direct manufactured result of their own preferences. They didn't stumble into this 3 a.m. hollow. They engineered it every single time. They needed to win more than they needed to be known.
Wow. Every time they needed to win more than they needed to be known. Let's really dig into that. Because to be known by someone truly known means allowing them to see your flaws,
Yes.
your doubts, your mistakes. It requires massive vulnerability. And if you have spent your life eliminating anyone who sees those things, you are entirely shielded, but you are entirely invisible.
That is the philosophical core of this entire phenomenon. It is the tragic cost of this specific ego structure. You cannot be truly seen by someone who is afraid of you. It is practically and psychologically impossible.
Because if I'm afraid of you, my primary objective isn't to connect with you. My primary objective is to manage you. I'm
Interesting.
managing your moods, I'm managing your reactions, I'm trying to predict what will keep me safe. I'm acting like a hostage negotiator, not a friend. There is literally no bandwidth left in my brain for actual connection.
Yes, beautifully said. And furthermore, you cannot be truly known by someone whose survival depends on your approval. If I need you to validate me so I can keep my job or my status or my inheritance, I am never going to show you my true, messy self.
No way.
And I'm certainly never going to demand that you show me yours. The relationship is purely transactional, even though it is masked as interpersonal.
Which means true intimacy and actual love are completely impossible inside a hierarchy where disagreement isn't safe. If I can't say no to you, my yes means absolutely nothing.
It becomes a pure performance. And that is why power, when it is untempered by real, equal relationships, doesn't actually make you feel powerful.
Right. It makes you a ghost haunting your own kingdom. You are completely substantial to everyone around you. They have to deal with you. They have to navigate around your moods. But you are intimate with absolutely no one. You are surrounded by total agreement and completely devastatingly alone.
And that is what makes this story not just an irony, but a deep tragedy.
Okay.
From the outside, the ruler looks like they have won the game. They have the wealth, the status, the compliant board of directors, the perfectly agreeable family.
Glossings of success.
But the specific punishment built into that ego structure is that the victory itself becomes a cage.
It's incredibly heavy, but it's also such a powerful warning. So for you listening, let's just do a quick recap of the journey we've taken on this deep dive today. We started by looking at how leaders inadvertently engineer their own isolation by mistaking the discomfort of a dissenting voice for a dangerous threat.
Right, the filter.
The filter, exactly. We saw how this dynamic causes a mass exodus of the good ones, the people with high integrity and strong inner lives who just refuse to shrink to fit fragile ego. We then explored how those empty seats are filled by an architecture of flattery, creating a funhouse mirror of an echo chamber where survival is tied to pleasing the ruler. And finally, we unpacked that tragic 3 a.m. somatic holodeute, the physical realization that total dominance guarantees total isolation.
It is a profound sequence of events to map out.
Mhm.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on what we've discussed today.
I'd love to hear it.
If we accept that total dominance guarantees total isolation, and that an inability to handle pushback leaves you surrounded by performative flattery, then perhaps we need to entirely redefine what a strong leader looks like.
Okay.
Perhaps the truest measure of genuine power isn't how many people in a room agree with you. Perhaps true power is your capacity to tolerate and actively protect the people who make you slightly uncomfortable.
The people who have the courage to hand you the messy, complicated truth instead of a shiny, agreeable funhouse mirror. I absolutely love that. It's a great challenge for all of us to evaluate the echo chambers in our own lives. Think about your workplace, your social circles, your dinner tables, because the next time you feel the urge to turn on God mode and eliminate all the friction in your life, you might want to ask yourself, are you building a kingdom or are you just building a really fancy cage? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.